Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next City of Echoes chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 19 and 20. So once again, I do have YouTube channel membership and Patreon available if you'd like to help support the channel, and if you come in at the higher tier, you will gain early access to videos in this series. But we'll jump in here. So what we have here, interestingly, is sort of the follow-up chapter to chapter 18. So what's going on with Ansumi? Is she Fire Nation after that kind of teaser from the last chapter? And then actually the start of Jin's Silver Fang training in chapter 20 with the very interesting introduction of some characters we know. So let's get into this one here. So chapter 19 immediately starts with Peace Child, because Jin's like shaking from this kind of Fire Nation potential reveal. There's nothing really to it, is sort of the idea. Ansumi just notes that the people who pass through these doors are younger and younger each time. Her voice is heavy when she says this. So she's just noting that effectively, like, the people coming to join, effectively, the group that's trying to kind of help the city, bring stability to the city, or, you know, in a lot of the cases, you know, who just need the support of this kind of big organization. They're younger and younger each time, speaking to the fact of how many problems there are in the lower ring. But yeah, they have stories of villages burning, broken families. We take them in, and yet we spin lies, force them to forget. Jin notes how she can't forget. She wants to, but she can't. And yes, we shouldn't have to forget. That is the idea. But Jin's kind of ideal in this is, you know, I want to believe there is good in everyone, like the boy I kissed beside the fountain. But then I remember the Fire Nation slaughter. Everything is twisted up inside of me, difficult to unravel. So she still has these complicated thoughts, but the main takeaway there is that she doesn't immediately think Fire Nation and just, you know, kind of turns into Jet type thing, early Jet. It's not like that, but they're still confusing thoughts because she's aware they're not all bad, but they are the ones who have done the bad things kind of to her. And that's the whole kind of point in all of this. Ansumi notes that, yeah, there's strength in memory, in knowing how we have faltered before and preparing ourselves so that we do not falter again. The Silver Fangs are keepers of the truth. No matter how terrible, are you strong enough to bear it? And Jin is. She needs the money. This is why she's here. She mentions the idea of this contract that she needs to pay off, and Ansumi's like, oh, a contract? For who? Perhaps I know of them. And she says her name is Su Yin Wen. Her father owed a debt to Lao Yu, and she took the contract in his place. And Ansumi's like, I remember her. Your friend was quite passionate, had some choice words for all of us, but especially for her father. I thought Lao Yu's eyebrows were going to fall off his face. They flew so high. He recognized she was clever and recommended her for a special assignment. He's not usually so easily persuaded, you know? And then Jin is like, wait, you were involved. Wait, you're the judge. So this is the character who was alluded to when we got the reveal of what actually happened with Susu, is that there was this judge character who came in to sort of facilitate the kind of negotiation, basically, between the family over the bakery and the people that the contract was kind of owed to, basically. So yeah, the Ansumi is the judge. So that's a big reveal here overall. Kind of highlighting that, like, given what we know about the Silver Fangs now, that, oh, she's also kind of well respected enough to be like a mediator between the kind of officials and the kind of more lower ring people. So that's kind of interesting. That's one of my many names, though not a favorite one. I do not like to play that part, even if it sometimes is one people ask of me. So it's obviously a tough position to be put in, to kind of have to negotiate these terrible deals that no one really wants to make, but try to get the best out of it here. So she just notes that, like, you know, the terms can't be erased, as we've discussed already. I think you understand that. But yeah, if you prove yourself in the coming weeks, I could offer you a position that has steady pay. You know, you might even be pleased to see how we do it, how we kind of get the money, how we facilitate a redistribution of wealth, shall we say. But you will have to work your way up the ranks. So that's the kind of point there. So she notes that, you know, there's a test usually in these cases, but hey, we feel that you're already, like, pretty good because Chuan helped you out with the whole delivery to Madame Mokmu Ling and she liked you. She informed me that she had a curious encounter the other day with a bright girl who provided her with interesting conversation. I trust her judgment. If she believes you can be a benefit to us, then you can join our training. What is the training? We have a fresh batch of initiates. You can kind of join with them. And we'll see how your aptitudes kind of fit in with the organization. Chuan will tell you when we're kind of ready for you to start this training is sort of the idea there. But interesting, going back to the Madame Mokmu Ling thing to kind of highlight that actually she's kind of high up involved in the Silver Fangs here. That's the interesting reveal, that random character who had the haiku battle with Sokka is actually a sort of notable player in the kind of city to a certain degree, and like is involved in almost like assisting with the Silver Fangs and kind of redistribution of wealth, which I guess is why, like, apart from kind of coming across as kind of like, upper ring kind of person, she didn't seem to immediately like dismiss Jin out of hand just because she was from the lower ring. She saw that she was competent and like gave her a chance, which was kind of interesting just by itself. But anyway, she goes back out to Chuan and Tangbo, of course, who are talking. They kind of like head out at this point, and he asks, how did it go? That's the kind of whole idea here. And she's just thinking to herself as she's kind of discussing this with him, like, do I go down the path that Gong Gong set up for me of, going to school, making my way up in that regards, or do I climb the ranks of the Silver Fangs and go down that path, but kind of maybe be involved in some of the stuff that I maybe never wanted to be involved in? What is the right choice? But she kind of realizes that it kind of has to be the Silver Fangs because it is right now the only path to make money quickly overall. So she says that, like, yeah, Unsumi said, you'll tell me when the next training session is. And Chuan is impressed, like, oh, you must have made quite the impression. She only lets people she takes under her wing call her aunt. So there's that. Jin's a little bit like, hey, you didn't tell me she was the judge. And he's just like, hey, I didn't want to kind of make you nervous going in thinking like you were meeting like the most important person in the world, which is kind of correct overall. So, Jin asks him for a little bit more context now that she kind of knows some of the more inner workings. What's the deal with her? Is she the leader of the Silver Fangs? The Silver Fangs are a collective. The business owners who paid their dues get a say in the running of the group, though they are overseen by two representatives, the judge and the singer, he explains. Though what they do at the meetings are still a mystery to me, I'm just a lackey. I do what I'm told. So here we find out that there are two main leaders to the Silver Fangs, the judge, who's Unsumi, and then the singer, who we haven't met yet. So that's an interesting little detail there. But yeah, and then we find out that Chuan is just kind of a relatively normal member of the group, but because he's a little bit more advanced, he does explain that, like, I do whatever they ask of me, whether it's making deliveries or wrangling trainees. That's the kind of whole idea there. And again, he kind of stresses to her again, like referencing some of the previous chapters of just like, hey, figure out if this is what you really want. I hear Pao is hiring. Like, you could go for the job there. It might be a little bit better than anything else you have. Do you want that steady stuff, or do you really, really want to be part of this? And she's like, no, I can handle it. Let me know where to meet. I will be there. I will prove it to you that I can do this. Because there's still a little bit of combativeness between the two of them, even though it's gradually maybe beginning to kind of fall away. So they kind of like head through the kind of crowd at this point. There's some interesting stuff that happens here. The crowd is a buzz with the talk of unusual happenings. Some speak of giant shadows flying over the city. Some of them even heard explosions in the distance. There were guards called away quickly, all of them heading towards the palace. The city feels hot and expectant, dreading what the summer wind will bring from the desert. I wonder if it's related to the promised change Professor foretold. What will it mean for us all? So interesting there. And it's also interesting because I'm not really sure overall like what is specifically they're talking about there. The giant shadow, I assume, is maybe some of the Appa sightings, kind of with the idea that he was captured and stuff like that. The explosions in the distance maybe referencing the drill, because I don't think most of Lake Laogai has happened yet because of what we're about to get into in the next chapter. I'll discuss it kind of more when we kind of get there, but we're definitely in the middle of Lake Laogai kind of right now, because early on in the episode Lake Laogai is where we see the scene where Iroh and Zuko are visited by Quan, who kind of gives the Jasmine Dragon tea shop to them. So that kind of happens right in the middle of that episode, kind of towards the start. And we're not quite at the kind of actual set piece action scene that's kind of happening. So interesting as we go into chapter 20 here. So, she says she spent the weekend preparing extra batches of Gong-Gong's medicine. He's actually been pretty alert for the last kind of couple of days. Things have been going pretty well overall. Where we find her here, though, is that she's helping out behind the counter at the bakery when Xuan shows up. So he actually shows up at the Wen bakery, and she's a little bit surprised by this. And he kind of puts on a little bit of a show here. He gets one of the pastries, he eats it there and kind of in front of her. And then when Mama Wen comes out, he's like, "Oh, beautiful auntie, I'm hoping to borrow my friend Jin for the afternoon, if you will permit it." And Mama Wen is just like, "Yeah, of course, Jin, go be with your friends." And she tries to argue, but it's just like, "No, take the day off, go Jin," like forcing her out. So I do really like Mama Wen here, where like, even though she realistically needs the help, she also is aware that kind of Jin needs to live her life and can't just like devote everything to kind of the family. So it's a really nice kind of dynamic there, that they do really treat her kind of as a daughter. So that's nice to see. But yeah, they get to talking. You could have given me more notice before this, but yeah, the whole idea is with the Silver Fangs, you have to be prepared at all times for the work. So they head to the entertainment district. Then they go down some kind of like stairs underneath a building into kind of like a warehouse type thing. And then we get the introduction of some characters here. A person looks up when we enter, sitting on a box. They jump off and make their way towards us. A slight figure, a little bit shorter than me, with hair like someone put a bowl over their head and then trimmed all the way around it. But the eyes that gleam under that ridiculous haircut don't quite match. We've been waiting for a while. The voice is high, younger than I expected, maybe my age. Someone else clears their throat with agreement, and I jump, not realizing another person is hidden in the shadows. Taller, slimmer. They both have on an identical guard uniforms, slightly ill-fitting on the shoulders. And this is where Xuan steps in and is like, "The short one is Smellerbee. She's good with knives. The tall one is Longshot. And this is Jin, the last initiate. She'll start training with you two." So, very cool stuff here as we get the introduction of Smellerbee and Longshot into this book. And they are going to be here pretty much for the rest of the book. There are moments where they're not kind of fully around, but like they will be recurring characters in the book for the rest of the run here. They kind of, as they kind of set them up here, they're teammates in training, but they kind of get paired up for most of the rest of the book as we go on. So this group of 4 characters here, Jin, Xuan, Smellerbee and Longshot, is our kind of group effectively for the rest of the book, which is interesting. So cool to see them here. And again, in terms of timeline stuff, the idea is that the screenshot I have up on screen here is from City of Walls and Secrets, which has already happened, of course, because again, we've had the date and stuff like that, and that's from 215. City of Walls and Secrets is 214. So I don't think like Laogai has quite happened yet. In that episode, this is the last shot we get of those two from City of Walls and Secrets, where they see Jet get taken away, which again, remember earlier on in this book, Jin also witnessed that happen as well. So they were both basically part of the same crowd at a certain point earlier on. So the idea seems to be that following Smellerbee and Longshot's story is that after Jet was taken away, they somehow got involved with the Silver Fangs. And that's why they're here. That's why they're trainees, because they have just recently, I guess, joined up, and they're on roughly the same level as Jin is. But they're more used to kind of being kind of operatives in that way as freedom fighters than she is. But that's what we're going to get to kind of see here. So super cool. I think they're used quite well over the course of the book. I do wish there was maybe a little bit more kind of reveals or like new stuff about them that we learned. Just kind of take the opportunity like they do with Jin in this book to really flesh out the character, whereas they give us little bits and pieces, but it does feel like they kind of hold back a little bit with these two characters from full on having giant kind of reveals happen with them. But they're super fun to have around. Really good choice of characters, I think, as well, to just fill in the idea of like, yeah, they have little bits of their story that we don't quite know about, and yeah, it makes sense to kind of fill it in. What were they doing during this point in time? Because remember, this is the group of the freedom fighters that are not involved in, like, say, like the invasion. They're not with Team Avatar towards the end of the book, so like they are doing different stuff. Like, this is their last kind of big involvement in the series, and then they come back in the comics, of course. So some fill-in material in terms of, yeah, Smellerbee and Longshot from from Lake Laogai all the way up to the end of the series. What were they doing? We get that here, which is quite exciting. So Jin's reaction to these two and hearing their names is like, those are interesting names. And Smellerbee is just like, never heard of a nickname straight away. And Jin has so many questions about Smellerbee, basically, is sort of the idea here. But yeah, we put the initiates together when we can to train them and stuff like that. Smellerbee just notes that, like, hey, me and Longshot work really well together. She might get in our way. Like, do we need to have a 3-person team? He says, you need an earthbender on your team, and neither of you is an earthbender. Smellerbee's like, she doesn't look like an earthbender. And yeah, they're going to work together as a team on this. So, you know, it's training, and he's just like, yeah, on-the-job training. So here's what the situation is. He explains to them beforehand that, like, hey, because you're now kind of part of the Silver Fangs, there's a certain level of protection here where, like, getting in trouble with, like, small businesses and stuff like that, we can get you out of. But if, like, you get captured or something like that by the officials, we can't really help you in that regard. So that's the situation there. You still have to be careful. So what the setup for this training session is this. On this street, there is a row of entertainment houses: bamboo, plum, pine, and fir. We're currently underneath a bamboo house, which belongs to the collective, and there's an entertainer in the pine house who has basically got something they're not meant to have. We need to get that thing back. And Jin is like, we're stealing it. Smellerbee's like, no, we're returning it to its rightful owner. That's the way this group operates, of course. He starts sketching out some diagrams, basically, in dust, Chuan here. You know, this is bamboo house, pine house is next door. We have to kind of infiltrate this on the 3rd floor. And then the big thing is that there is a kind of, you know, a safe hidden in the wall. And the lock to get into that safe is a lock that only an earthbender can open. Here's what we know of the mechanism. He describes it as there are 2 circles. Push with the right hand, pull with the left. Once you hear the click, turn them in the opposite direction and the door will swing open. And Jin, the problem, of course, here is that Jin doesn't know how to do this. The infiltration should be fine because Smellerbee and Longshot know what they're doing. They're going to handle that. But Jin doesn't know how to do the earthbending part of this. So this is where Chuan gives her the training kind of straight away. She kind of highlights, I only know the basics. He's like, hey, really? You only know the basics? Like, I've seen you skip stones across the Turtle Duck Pond and stuff like that. And she's just like, you know, it's just really low level stuff. But then she's like, wait, how did he notice me doing earthbending? I basically tried to hide it. And it speaks to the fact that he's been paying more attention to her than I think she ever kind of initially thought. He thinks that there's more to her than meets the eye because of the way she pulled the rock out of the wall when she nearly went to, like, attack Jiang. So he thinks that she can't do this, even though she's being kind of modest about this. So yeah, that's the whole situation there. There's a little bit of a discussion about how, like, oh, she now has to pursue her earthbending to be part of the Silver Fangs when Gong Gong never really wanted that for her. But hey, just learning a skill that she has, that's no problem. It's an easy choice to make for her to be part of this, of course. So Chuan is going to teach her here, and he kind of pulls out these 2 kind of pendants to kind of practice the idea, which is she doesn't have this kind of precise control, this kind of slightly delicate maneuver. Earthbending oftentimes is more of a, on the basic level at least, more of a brutal act of just moving big chunks of earth. But in this case, it's the idea of, hey, something simple like, you've got 2 things. Can you make one go this way, one go that way? Like, at the same time with your control. That's the kind of point that he's kind of trying to make with this. I don't think the description of how the mechanism of the lock works is particularly great, because it's just like 2 circles, pull, push, but then there's like a twist involved as well. They don't describe like the almost geometry of the situation super well, but I think you get the idea, is that Jin has to learn a more delicate earthbending maneuver here. Can she do it? So yeah, she struggles initially. We get the description in her head of like trying to go through the basics of bending. Jing is the energy at the center of bending. The earth may seem unyielding, but it's the essence of neutral Jing. The shift of a single pebble can send a rock slide down a side of a mountain. So she's trying to do it. It's not quite working. He notes that like it is a challenge for many earthbenders to do these two things, like push and pull at the same time. It takes a lot of concentration. He can do it. And he highlights kind of like the difference in earthbending approach that there often is between different people here. Some earthbenders, like Avatar Kyoshi, can throw boulders at her enemies and lift up platforms from the earth. But other earthbenders, though they cannot move mountains, pay attention to the details. And so she takes up her stance, and this time he's trying to like really kind of get into the details of how to do this. So he goes right up to her kind of like and touches his hands to her, fingertips to fingertips, to kind of really guide her through the motions of this. And of course they play into the kind of intimate nature of this, of like he's getting quite close to her. They're basically kind of like holding hands. They're kind of staring at each other in the eyes. It's not quite like romantic now, but there is a weird kind of awkwardness kind of to it. But she needs to do the training to kind of get through this. So the chapter just ends with the idea of like, I can barely breathe, afraid it will disrupt this moment. As she's about to learn the lock-picking kind of earthbending maneuver from Chuan, who of course gets revealed here to be more of a precision earthbender than a power earthbender, which I think makes a lot of sense. So some cool stuff here, I think, over the last couple of chapters in terms of like, okay, this is the type of group that the Silver Fangs are. We're doing a bit of training here, setting up our team, and it's such a cool idea, I think, to have her team kind of be Smellerbee and Longshot, so she gets to be a kind of honorary freedom fighter to a certain degree. And some of the places that they go with this, as we'll see in the coming chapters, is very, very intriguing here. But yeah, from what I can tell, like we're going into the actual like training mission kind of next time out. We're still in the middle of Lake Laogai, but the big action of Lake Laogai hasn't quite kicked off yet. I'm guessing like Team Avatar at this point are beginning their like investigation, and we'll see the crossover point kind of happen at a certain point. So it'll be interesting to get into that. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on these two chapters. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.